Hi, and thanks for listening to A to Z for Moms podcast. I'm Jody Martin, and if this is your first time listening or watching on YouTube, my podcast, we have a weekly lineup which goes as follows. Motivational Monday, kick off the week with inspiration and self-help. Teaching Tuesday, homeschool insights and educational guidance. Whip It Wednesday, culinary adventures and cooking tips. Parenting perspectives on Thursday, get advice, stories, and support for parenting. Food Storage Friday, learn about food storage and preparedness. Money Magic for Moms Saturday, discover entrepreneurship and ways to make money from home. So each podcast, we go over four main talking points. And so today we are going to be talking, since it's Wednesday, it's Whip It Wednesday, or I guess Whisk It, since it's cooking. We're going to be talking about some uses for milk. And so we're going to be talking, the four topics we're going to cover are freeze, process, or freeze dry. Number 2, cheeses. Number 3, custards, puddings, and baking. And number 4, sauces, soups, and gravies. So you can listen to this podcast on all the major podcast platforms, as well as viewing it on my YouTube channel. The show name is A to Z for Moms. If you want to check it on YouTube, the YouTube channel is A to Z for Moms Like Me. That is also my TikTok link name. What's it called? Username on TikTok. A to Z for Moms Like Me. If you want to follow me on YouTube or on TikTok. And you can always check out my website, a2zformoms.com. That'll have all of the podcasts are on there. And if I share anything, it'll have affiliate links or links to products, pictures, ideas, things like that I talk about in the podcast. So if you need a little clarification or you have any questions, you can also email me. The email address is podcast@a2zformoms.com. All right. Without further ado, let's get into today's topic. So again, we're going to be talking, number 1, freeze, process, or freeze dry. Number 2, cheeses. Number 3, custards, pudding, and baking. And number 4, sauces, soup, and gravy. So number 1, freeze, process, or freeze dry. Now, I kind of got this idea for today's podcast because last week we have a local food pantry it's a mobile food pantry in our area, and normally that's not something I would go to, and I'm like, we're good on food. But a friend of mine had told me a long time ago that whatever they don't get rid of or whatever they don't hand out, they have to throw away. And she's like, always go, because if you have a family, if you'll eat the food, like, it's better that somebody eats it than it goes in the trash, right? So a lot of times I go and I'll volunteer because it's just a great program. But last week we had a couple things going on, so I wasn't able to volunteer. But I thought, well, what the heck, I'll just go and see. I was literally the second to the last car. They were done. I was second to last car. I pulled in, went right through. They were packing it up, or starting to pack things up, and they still had a ton of stuff. So needless to say, they gave me 12 gallons of milk. So again, if they don't get rid of it, if they don't hand it out, they have to throw it away. And so I came home with 12 gallons of milk. And the downside was it all expired on Saturday. So this is on Friday. So I really only had one day. Now, the expiration dates are, especially if it's kept cool, like milk, if you keep it in a cool fridge, you can go a few days past the expiration date usually. I mean, you'll smell it if it's going off, then you'll smell it if it's going rancid. But so that's give or take a few days. I've had milk that's been 3 days before the expiration date and it smells bad and we throw it away. But it just depends on how cold it's kept and all that. So, needless to say, I knew I had 12 gallons and I needed to use it as much as possible, as fast as possible. So, I ended up calling up one of my friends, and she took 3 gallons. They've got quite a few kids and go through a lot of milk. And so, she took 3 gallons. And the rest of it, I got busy. So, now, you have options. When you have this much milk, there's a lot of options. And whether you have 9 gallons left is what I had left after I gave 3 away. If you have that many, a ton of gallons of milk, you can do these. Or if you just have 1 extra gallon and you're afraid it's going to expire before you get a chance to use it, you can apply some of these things we're going to talk about today. The first one would be freezing. A lot of people don't realize you can actually freeze milk. It does freeze well, and so you can freeze it in the gallon itself if you have freezer room for that, or you can transfer it to things like a freezer safe Ziploc bag or container, something like that. If you want it in smaller portions, especially if you have a gallon and there's only 1 or 2 of you at home, you just won't drink that much at a time. Freeze it up in smaller containers, and then you can just pull it out as needed. Frozen, it'll last about 6 months in your freezer, the milk will. So they say 3 to 6 months. So, but again, it just does take up freezer space. And so your second option is going to be process it, which meaning use it in recipes. And I'll go into that a little bit more here, but basically use it up. And more than just like, hey, everybody, we're going to have cold cereal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and everybody gets 3 bowls each meal, eventually, yeah, that would use it up, or drink it up, make chocolate chip cookies or brownies something you want to drink a lot of milk with. That's an option too. But you can only drink so much milk all at once. We had story time here. Funny enough, years ago, my brother, we were camping and we had an extra gallon of milk in the coolers. There wasn't room for it, or whatever reason it was. So my brother was talking, and one of my nephews is like, well, I'll just drink it. I'll drink the whole thing. And my brother's like, no, you can't. Like, it's physically impossible to drink a gallon of milk in an hour. Like, your body doesn't process it. Your body doesn't metabolize it fast enough for you to drink a gallon of milk in an hour. And my nephew's like, no, I can do it. I drink milk all the time. I'm a strong young lad. And he was probably 17, I'm thinking, at the time. And this was years and years ago. And so my brother was like, all right, I'll give you $50 if you can drink that whole gallon of milk in an hour. Needless to say, he was not able to do it. He even enlisted the help of one of his brothers or cousins, another nephew. And between the two of them, they couldn't do it. And they ended up throwing it up. And it was entertainment for everybody that was camping. And so, needless to say, it's one of those things that's just not possible. So, within your realm of possibility, right? Let's be realistic. So, I hope you enjoyed that little story, family story time. We have weird things that entertain us, apparently. So your next option would be freeze dry. Obviously, you have to have a freeze dryer in order to do this. So if you do have a freeze dryer, milk, it actually freeze dries really well. And if you freeze dry it, it actually, once it's freeze dried, as long as it's packaged properly with Mylar bags or in a jar, and you use oxygen absorbers, all that, if you have good quality ways of packaging it and you package it properly, it'll last 25 years. So, and the difference is it's not going to be like your powdered milk that has a funny taste to it. Milk, when it's freeze dried, that's what Thrive Life sells. It's actually called instant milk because it's